across the heart of Cowboys country. It's your opportunity to ask questions to Cowboys insider Mickey Spagnola. This is Silver Star Nation Interactive.
What's going on, Cowboys fans? Welcome to the show. I'm Wes Moore. Glad you're with us today. We're going to talk a little Cowboys with Mickey Spagnola, our insider. And remember, you can get involved on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskMickey. Mickey, how's it going?
I'm doing fine. How are you today?
Not bad, not bad. Cowboys 2-2 after 4 games. Half game out of the East behind the Redskins. What do we know? What do you know about these Cowboys after 4 games?
I think what we know is we don't know enough. At 2-2, it's kind of this teeter-totter season so far. Lose one, win one, lose one, win one. Although I think the steps that they're taking, and maybe incrementally, are in the right direction. I've seen some steps with this offense getting a little bit better each week. And I think the key thing is they can't make the big mistakes on offense like they had in the losses, and they have to do a good job of protecting Dak Prescott. I think they did all that against the Detroit Lions, and it was a close shave there, but they ended up winning in the end. But you saw the offense score 26 points. That was a step in the right direction. And Wes, they scored on 6 of their 8 full possessions. That was a step in the right direction. Now, the next step is can't be kicking field goals inside the red zone the way they did, especially when you have goal-to-goal situations and you end up with a field goal. You got to get better than that. That almost cost them the game. You know, except for like 1 or 2 big plays defensively, they played pretty well. But the trend in these last 2 games with the defense has been busted coverages. Can't have those, especially when you're up against a quarterback the caliber of Matthew Stafford. Now, I don't know that these next coming games they're going to play a quarterback as accomplished as Matthew Stafford, so that's a good thing. And the other thing is, in this league right now, when everybody's slinging the ball around and scoring a lot of points, you better get pressure on quarterbacks because they just can't cover all these wide receivers, all these weapons that seemingly the NFL has acquired, and think you're going to win games. It's almost like it's turning into college football where you have a lot of offense going and not much defense. The Cowboys' defense has to continue to step up, and the offense has to help them out. I think they did in this game, and I think you saw what Dak Prescott could do. You saw what the wide receivers could do, and for sure you saw what Ezekiel Elliott has done and can continue to do.
Very special game from Ezekiel Elliott. I got to ask how much, well, obviously the offensive line plays a big role in this. How much did the offensive line improve against Detroit?
Well, I thought they did, and they should have. You know, Detroit struggled against the run. Their best pass rusher, Ziggy Ansah, was still out, inactive. So, yeah, they did what they should have done against the Detroit team. You know, I heard somebody say, well, it was Detroit, they weren't so good. But that wasn't the song everybody was singing last week after they had gone out and beat New England. It's like, oh, this is a new Lions team. But then when you beat them, it's like, well, it's the Lions. Can't have it both ways. So I thought the offensive line, the pass protection improved. I thought the run blocking improved. And I think you saw when they're on the run, the offensive line, when you got those guys moving and pulling, they're pretty athletic and they're pretty good. And I think you saw that, Wes, on that screen pass to Zeke for the touchdown. He had 3 of his offensive linemen out front of him, and Joe Looney all the way to the goal line. You know, we kind of have fun with Jumbo Joe, but he was there taking the last 2 guys out at the goal line. So on the move, these offensive linemen are I think, much better than sitting there and just trying to power straight ahead.
Looney was picking them up and putting them down. He looked very impressive for a big man running that fast, that far down the field. If you got a question for Mickey, jump in on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskMickey. Mickey, do you think we'll see more, speaking of that screenplay, even more of Ezekiel Elliott in the passing game?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with how teams are playing them. I think from the screen standpoint, if you pick your the right moment, depending how the team's playing defense, it's a huge weapon, and I think you saw that with how Detroit was trying to line up. As for the downfield stuff, it was something the Cowboys have worked on, and I think one of the things that happened in the game, Wes, is that when they went empty, 3 wide, a tight end, and Zeke, they had him in the slot. So how are you going to match up? Are you going to change your defense and bring in more DBs, or are you going to try to defend them with linebackers in the slot? And Detroit decided they're going to put a linebacker on Zeke when he lined up in the slot, and you're going to be in man-to-man coverage. Well, they saw that. Zeke said, when he went to the bench after they did it a couple times, when he went to the sideline, he was pointing it out to Linehan, and Linehan said, no, I've seen it. And he goes, we're going to dial one up. Well, they did on that last drive. He did get the single coverage, beat the linebacker, and Dak threw a dime in the bucket for that, 34-yard gain down to the 25. So, again, a lot of it has to do with matchups and how the defense is playing you. And I guarantee you, when the coming defenses look, the Texans are going to see that play, and they're going, okay, unless we have a linebacker that can move downfield better than what Detroit had, we need to have a little bit more help on that side of the field if they're going to put Zeke in the slot again.
Mickey, you talked about the failures to score inside the red zone, settling for field goals. What was going on? Why did they have to settle for field goals?
Yeah, that last time when it's 1st and goal at the 6-yard line, and the way they were running the ball. And I know Detroit was overloading to stop the run, but again, Zeke has this knack to figure out how to get the ball in the end zone. I don't think you have to get fancy. And again, the first down carry was 2 yards to the 4. Well, if he got 2 yards on each of the carries, if you kept feeding him, then it's a touchdown. I think they thought that, Detroit was overloading in the middle and then they could fool them. And they almost did with the rollout. And Jeff Swain almost had 2 touchdown receptions in the game. Dak was a little high. He kind of got pressured. But the time before that, when they went for it on 4th down, they got a little fortunate now. But Zeke got the first down running the ball. Problem is he coughed it up, and they were very fortunate, as I said, for Blake Jarwin to recover the ball at the 1-yard line. Now, no one complained about that set of downs when they did the play fake, boot to the right, and threw to a wide-open Jeff Swain for his first career touchdown from the 1-yard line. I haven't heard anybody scream, well, they should have ran the ball. But when you don't get it in and you kick a field goal, then, well, why didn't you run Zeke? So it's hard to have it both ways, but still, I think when you're that close to the goal line with Ezekiel Elliott, I'm going to give him as many opportunities as I can to let him get the ball in the end zone. It was like take the screen pass that went for a touchdown, Wes. When he got to about the 20-yard line, if you're watching closely, you're going to go, you know what, with a head of steam that he has, he's going to figure out a way to score. And he did. And that's his talent. Somebody took me to task once when I said Ezekiel Elliott, his talent is he knows how to score touchdowns. And they go, oh, well, are you serious? Like that's a skill? And it's like, absolutely, with this guy, he can get the ball in the end zone. He has a knack to do it. So I'm feeding him. And I know he was beat up after the game. You know what? Give him Wednesday off. Let him rest. And get him back in practice Thursday and Friday and saddle him up again.
All right, we talked about some of the problems with the defense, some of the big plays, some breakdowns. How much of that is due to the fact Jeff Heath had left the game?
Well, that's one thing I'm starting to worry about. You know how we talk about, well, it's very hard for the Cowboys to win when Sean Lee's not in there. Well, they actually won one for a change without Lee on the field. But what's starting to occur, especially these last 2 games, is when Jeff Heath is out, they're suffering from busted coverages. And so he's kind of the quarterback back there. And, they really can't afford to lose a safety because then they're down to really just 2 guys that have played in the league, Xavier Woods, Kayvon Frazier, and then Jeff Heath. And I think he does a good job of getting everybody settled back there. And the last, look, Matthew Stafford was really good. I mean, the throws he was making, not every quarterback can do that. And their receivers made some nice catches with Chidobe Awuzie just draped all over him, his hand in there between their two hands, and they were still coming down with the ball. But the inexcusable thing was on the go-ahead touchdown to give the Lions a 24-23 lead, that they busted a cover 3 coverage. You're specifically in a cover 3 to make sure nothing gets over your head. And unfortunately, with Anthony Brown underneath, the guys in the back both went to the receiver that was in the slot when one of them should have stayed over the top of Golden Tate. That should have never happened. And I think if the fans were watching closely, they saw Keith Richard on the sideline, Chris Richard, sorry, chewing those guys out because he knew they were in the coverage they should have been in, and they didn't follow their principles and allowed that touchdown to occur.
Mickey, I have a question here about David Irving. Now that he's back, what can we expect out of him?
Well, today was his first day that he could join the team. They have a little bit of a walkthrough practice, nothing major, but they got a roster exception for him. So he doesn't count against the 53, but he can practice all week. And then by 3 o'clock on Saturday, they have to make a decision if he's going to play. If they want him to play, then the exemption expires. They've got to put him on the 53-man roster, and then they'll have to release somebody. If they don't think he's ready to play after practicing 3 times, then, and remember, it will be the first 3 times since last season. Because he didn't take part in any of the workouts with the team in the offseason, the OTAs, the mini camp. He missed all of training camp. So is he ready to go? If he is, you get him active. If he isn't, then he automatically reverts to your 53-man roster next week, and then they have to make a roster move. But I'm thinking, if he's in decent shape, and it's hard to judge that because he can do all the running he wants, Wes, but he's not working out against a 300-pound man in front of him and trying to push him out of the way. That'll take a lot out of you. But if he is active, you just kind of spot play him. Maybe you just say, okay, you come in on nickel downs. They have to throw the ball. And if nothing else, if he can't penetrate, let's remember he's 6'7". Just get your hands up in the air, and I think that'll give the quarterback enough trouble, maybe as much as if you get through and actually sack the guy. So it'll be interesting to see how they treat him, and my guess is they're probably not going to tip their hand and let Houston know, this is what we got up our sleeve. Let them worry about practicing against him, and maybe they waste their time if he doesn't play. But I bet they're not going to take the chance that he doesn't.
How big was that kick for Bret Maher? Do you think those juices were flowing a little bit at the end of the game?
I don't know about him because he kind of flatlines. He's sort of like Dan Bailey. He's pretty even-keeled. Doesn't look like much excites him one way or another. So, yeah, it's the first pressure kick. I think the guys that were really fretting it were Cowboys owner Jerry Jones and his son Stephen Jones up in the suite. Jerry told the story about while they were getting ready to line up for that kick, Jerry said Stephen told him, if he misses this, they're going to send us to South America. And so they were really nervous. Jerry said, I just shriveled up. Good thing I didn't have to make the kick. But, yeah, a really nice job, and I'm sure that was going through everybody's mind. It's like, okay, they decided to go with this guy, 38 yards. He better not miss because Dan Bailey wouldn't miss it, right? They had their reasons for releasing Bailey, and it looks like this guy's the real deal. He missed his first kick, and now he's made 8 straight, including a game winner. And I'm sure, I don't know if he's relieved, but I think what it does, Wes, is gives him confidence going forward.
Mickey, great job as always. Appreciate it and had a lot of fun. We'll see you next week.
Okay, sounds good.
That's Mickey Spagnola. Remember, tweet at or Ask Mickey, hashtag Ask Mickey, and you can get involved in next week.